Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with a midweek update in the world of cannabis. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. And then, of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos. Then there's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the industry, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you feel ready. We're going to start with this news from Marijuana Moment, as Montana retailers sold 13 million in recreational cannabis during February, second month after legalizing. So Montana's recreational cannabis industry posted around 13 million in sales between January 31 and February 27th, according to the State Department of Revenue, slightly outpacing business from the recreational market's first month as dispensary owners and other pot businesses work out the kinks. Cannabis sales totaled 12.8 million in January, a month that had 3 more days than February, the opening month for the new legal recreational market. And with lines out the door at some dispensaries on January 1 and an opening week frenzy in the ensuing days, few in the industry expected doing even more business in February, said J.D. Pepper Peterson, the head of the Montana Cannabis Guild and Industry Group. Honestly, I thought we would see a decrease in February just because opening day was so robust, he said. To the contrary, the final week in February proved to be the highest earning week in the recreational program's brief existence, with 3.4 million in sales according to the Department of Revenue. As Jerry Spurlock, the owner of Firefly Dispensary in Missoula, said he saw a 20% uptick in February sales compared to the month before. It was absolutely insane. So very happy to recap that the second month in, Montana's sales do continue to increase and the demand is strong in the state. Well, this comes from New Cannabis Ventures, as cannabis sales are sluggish to start 2022 according to BDSA, and that's certainly sluggish compared to the large December month where we typically see more spending as people prepare for the holidays. So we're going to look at Western markets, as BDSA provides coverage for the relatively mature markets of Arizona, California, Colorado, Nevada, and Oregon. As in January, growth ranged from negative 21% in Nevada to 19% in Arizona compared to a year ago. So as we walk through, Arizona combined sales of 104 million were up 18.7% compared to a year ago, when there were only medical cannabis sales, and down 10% from December, while medical sales of 46.8 million were down 47% from a year ago and 15% sequentially. So while January sales did soften compared to a strong December, I have no doubt that we're going to see the demand continue in Arizona, and sales will continue to increase as they head into year 2 of adult use legalization. Well, if we check out California, January sales of 275 million contracted by nearly 10% from December and by over 12% from a year ago in California, as this was the lowest year-over-year growth since the program began, especially as illegal growers run out of product that they harvested in Croptober, forcing customers to turn back to the legal market. And on top of that, we have seen some efforts from state and local lawmakers to reduce taxes, making it easier for the legal growers in California to compete with the illegal growers. On to Colorado, as cannabis sales dropped 4% from December in Colorado to 168 million, down 11% from a year ago. The decline was not as steep as the period from July through September, though, as flower sales fell nearly 18% from a year ago, with ingestibles, concentrates, and pre-rolls all down about 6%. While Nevada, the market remains very weak due to the pandemic, with sales of just 59 million declining 8% from December and 21% from a year ago, and obviously the lack of travel and tourism certainly plays a big impact. So hopefully sooner than later, the masses can remember what natural immunity is, so we can all agree to put this pandemic behind us and get back to normal, as that will certainly help sales in Nevada. Well, if we move down to Oregon, the 17% decline from a year ago to 88 million was the first double-digit decline that Oregon has experienced in recent years. Sequentially, sales fell 5%, but notice a similar trend that we see in California, as we see sort of dim sales in January, February, and then March, boom, picks back up, and that's likely due to Croptober and illegal sales or illegal harvests running out of product as well, because we see the same thing last year, and then in March, boom, same thing again. So we might look out for that same sort of trend coming into this year. Now, if we just look at the eastern markets, note that BDSA has begun providing data for Florida, Michigan, and Pennsylvania as of January 2021. So the year-over-year growth was available for the first time this month, as Florida sales fell 7% sequentially to 153 million, but up 23% from a year ago, while Pennsylvania sales fell 13% from December to 94 million, and this represented just 6% growth from a year ago, while Michigan, which we previously detailed, saw overall sales decrease of 9% from December to 153 million, up 41% from a year ago. So let's take a look at some of the eastern markets. Illinois, I've already covered this one, but we previously detailed the state's data indicating a 15% sequential decline decline to 147 million, up 32% from a year ago though in January. However, they have posted their February numbers, and with 3 less days, their February sales were on pace to surpass their January sales. So good to see in one of the newer markets in Illinois, sales continuing to grow as the demand is still strong. Well, if we take a look at Maryland, the medical cannabis market endured its first year-over-year decline with sales of 44 million, falling 5% from December and a year ago. Do keep in mind that Maryland is still just a medical-only market, and obviously if they wanted to increase these sales significantly, they would launch an adult use program. And they are planning to put that question on the 2022 ballot ahead of voters, which will likely vote yes to see that happen. But just to highlight as well, if we do compare from January 2021 to January 2022, it's not ideal to see that slow down, but do keep in mind that in America, opioids are still the drug of choice, and so it does take time to convert people from opioids to cannabis. But if we do look in the past, we can see the same similar trend where we see a flat February as well after January, but then a big jump up into March, where it just means that it's possible that the illegal product that makes its way from California can land in Maryland, and a lot of customers will choose the cheaper illegal product until it runs out, forcing them to go back to the legal market. So that's a possibility, but we'll have to look out for that. And lastly, Massachusetts, after setting a record in December, sales fell 14% to 136 million, but still 25% higher than a year ago, as Massachusetts is a newer market as well on the East Coast. But if we compare a record month, obviously seeing that bit of a downtrend is normal, especially after a very strong month to end that year. But if we take a look in the past as well, this is a bit of an anomaly because that was the COVID shutdowns and we'll likely never see that again. But similar to other states, we do see a flat February and then a big jump back up in March. So we'll just have to wait and see if that happens going forward. And then onto this one from Arizona Daily Sun, looking back at the first year after cannabis legalization in Arizona. I just wanted to highlight some things that they put in here to show why legalization is obviously a good thing and why many states want to take initiative and get this done. As those predictions were correct, with the Arizona Department of Revenue reporting more than 1.23 billion in combined medical and recreational cannabis sales through the first 11 months of the year. And we did have Marijuana Moment report that with December, they did manage to surpass 1.4 billion in sales. And that comes in Arizona's first year, and that's after launching on January 21st. So that didn't even account for sales from January 1 to January 20th as well. So a few other reasons why they did it. Well, the data in Colorado showed that while cannabis use among adults did increase, the rate of DUIs, adolescent use, and drug-related hospitalizations decreased across the board. So yeah, ending prohibition is actually a good thing. While cannabis was also proving to be a money-making machine in the states that did it first, as in 2019, Colorado hit a record 1.75 billion of revenue generated from medical and recreational cannabis alone. And so just want to reference this guy, Ryan Hermansky, who happens to be the co-owner of a dispensary who they interviewed for this article, and he mentions that when they got the okay to start recreational sales, Hermansky said overnight they went from 10% of total sales being online orders to about 40%, and that number has stayed relatively constant, which is impressive. And so last thing I want to highlight, just what he sees as the answer for the industry, and that being safe banking in his situation, as it would be amazing to have the ability to go get a normal loan. Hermansky said something like a safe banking act seems more probable than any sort of full-form federal legalization. A safe banking act would be tremendous for the industry, as it would let us compete like a normal business. So just wanted to highlight what someone on the ground in Arizona is seeing and sharing with us. And so at the same time, it would be great to get safe, but also to grant clemency to those in jail, as no one should be able to make money at the same time that people are still withering away in jail for a plant. And so I wanted to share this one from KCRW out of California, but highlighting the entire job growth throughout the US. But California is seeing a cannabis jobs boom. And so while I did report on this report from Leafly, just wanted to add a bit of context, as 107,059 new jobs were added in 2021. How is growth like that even possible? According to David Downs, it's toward because we keep adding new legalization states in the United States, which means the total addressable market will continue to organically expand over time. As this jobs report looks at 38 states, 11 of which have adult use sales, you can think of these cannabis jobs on the legal side like a wave that's sweeping across the nation. There's 33% increase in jobs year over year. That's 280 jobs a day, and this is the 5th straight year that those gains have been more than 27%. So that is quite impressive. Describe the scale of cannabis jobs in California. California now has more cannabis job equivalents than cops, and it's about to eclipse lawyers. It's bigger than Hollywood in terms of actors employed or directors employed versus cannabis job equivalents. And so you can pause to read and just get a bit more of the detail there. But one more thing just to add, what's driving hiring trends in California? They say we're in a golden age for the professionalization of cannabis. I'm seeing job openings for chemists, communications experts, engineering experts, and genome assistants. So just to highlight that it covers all sort of areas, and opportunity is endless. So if you want to look for new job opportunities, especially in the future, investor in a growing industry, look no further than cannabis. And so I just wanted to share this interview from Yahoo Finance, speaking with the CEO of Curaleaf, Joe Bayern. And so I'll press play, but just notice the little bit of misinformation that they spread right here in the first few seconds when they say that Curaleaf is a Canadian cannabis company, and they're not a Canadian cannabis company. So just another example of a lot of the misinformation coming from legacy media, but I'm just going to let this interview play so we can talk a little bit about what happened with Curaleaf's earnings and what they see in this industry going forward.
Welcome back. Canadian cannabis company Curaleaf just reported record annual revenue in addition to adjusted EBITDA of $1.2 billion, up 93% from 2020. The results were a bit shy of expectations, stock down a little bit today, but we do have Curaleaf CEO Joe Bayern standing by with Yahoo Finance's Dave Briggs. Dave, I'm going to turn this over to you now.
Appreciate that, Jared. Yeah, always the highs and the lows of the cannabis industry evident in the numbers. Let's talk about it with the CEO of the biggest cannabis company on the planet, Joe Bayern from Curaleaf. Joe, good to see you, my friend. I have to disclose to our viewers, I am part of an ongoing Curaleaf PR campaign entitled iCannabis. Proud to be a part of that and an advocate for the industry as well. But let's talk about the numbers. You top $1 billion in revenue for the first time, but yet the stock still looks like swag, down $10 a share in the last year and down about 20% in recent days. What's your reaction to the latest numbers?
Yeah, obviously, we're very pleased with our performance. We felt we posted a very strong year in 2021. As you said, our revenue topped $1 billion to $1.2 billion, which was a 93% increase from prior year. And I think not only is it an important milestone for Curaleaf, but I think it's a really important milestone for the cannabis industry that we're demonstrating that the key players in the industry, are becoming billion-dollar businesses capable of generating significant revenue, creating jobs and tax revenue from the industry, and also obviously creating a margin. So we think it was a strong performance on the back of another strong performance in 2020.
$320 million in revenue in Q4. We're now legal. Cannabis is legal in 18 states, plus DC, legal medically in 38 states. We have New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut coming online recreationally over the next year plus. When do you expect those sales to kick in, and how big a difference will it make for your bottom line?
Yeah, I think we Curaleaf, we're well positioned to take advantage of the growth in the Northeast corridor with New Jersey coming online. We hope that's happening before the end of the first half. We expect it to be sometime around the beginning of May. And then, of course, Connecticut and New York coming online toward the back end of 22 and into 23. So these are our core states. We're well positioned in these states. We're number 1 or 2 in each of those states, and we're ready for adult use to commence. And we believe it could be a significant tailwind for the cannabis industry. So I think when we look at our position, we feel we have a strong position in the Northeast, but then other growth markets like Florida continue to grow, Arizona, and of course the West Coast.
And when you look at public opinion polls, it is soaring, more so than maybe Tesla stock. 68% of Americans late last year, according to Gallup, are in favor of marijuana legalization, yet legislation federally really just stuck. I know there is a Republican in the House, Nancy Mace, now introducing legislation, as well as Jerry Nadler, Democrat in the House, and Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader in New York. But why do you think federal legalization is stuck, and what's your message to Congress?
As you said, I think the American public has overwhelmingly voted in favor of legalization of cannabis, and we believe that every American should have access to high-quality legal cannabis as not only part of the health and wellness regimen, but adult use. And I think it's time for legislators to catch up with the American public. They've overwhelmingly spoken in favor of this, and I think legislators have to respond by enacting law that is consistent with the wishes of their constituents, whether it's at the consumer level or at the state level. It's time to have legislation reform to reflect what the American people desire.
Sadly, I think everyone gets it, even the lawmakers. And so whether it's just corruption or incompetence causing the delay, 2022 is going to be a very telling year. So I wanted to share this one from Ed Perlmutter, highlighting more evidence for the overwhelming support for the Safe Banking Act in a new poll from Morning Consult in the American Bankers Association, who clearly want SAFE to pass at some point. 68% of respondents say Congress should act on safe banking. And so he's referencing a tweet from the American Bankers Association. It's bad for public safety, tax collection, and transparency, which is 100% true, highlighting that 60% of Americans support allowing cannabis businesses to access banking services, example, checking accounts, business loan in states where cannabis is legal, and 68% support Congress passing legislation that allows cannabis businesses to access banking services and products in states where cannabis is legal. So thank you, Ed, for sharing that. I wanted to share this one from Todd Harrison, highlighting BBG intelligence on U.S. cannabis, highlighting a few things. The outlook is bright, position for rapid growth, will encroach illicit share, pharma, tobacco, beverage interest is growing as Omicron hit bottomed out. And this is highlighting U.S. cannabis, so you can pause to read more out of what Bloomberg has to say, or BBG. Well, Todd also shared this one, U.S. cannabis, as of yesterday, looking at enterprise value divided by projected sales for full year 2022, 2023, and 2024. And if you have the patience to look this far out and the ability to just buy and hold, is there a greater sale in the U.S. right now for the coming decade? Let me know in the comments if you can find a better one, but I really don't think there are any more undervalued assets than US MSOs at these current valuations. And so lastly, just wanted to share this one from junglejava. All right, Gang Mama is back in business with the correct number for the Advisor Shares MSOS ETF. There was just one change made to the holdings for March 8th, 2022. And despite what we've gone through the past 2 weeks, while the overall market is going through the exact same thing, I should say, the cash position actually increased to 4.61 million, down from 2.67 million. But the main thing is that there have not been any redemptions during this time, which means that investors that have already invested in MSOS have confidence in the assets that they've bought. And so just wanted to provide these updates from MSOs as Air Wellness to hold fourth quarter and full year 2021 conference call on March 17th, 2022 at 8:30 a.m. So looking forward to adding this to the list, and I will do a video on that to cover Airs, while Cresco Labs to report fourth quarter and annual 2021 financial results on March 23rd, 2022, before the market opens at 8:30 a.m. as well. And so we've got Air and Cresco coming up. Trulieve will be on the 30th of March, and I think Verano is the one that has yet to announce when they will report their fourth quarter earnings, but obviously we'll be looking forward to when that death gets announced, and I'll be covering that as well. So on to this one from Marijuana Moment. As U.S. Senate candidate Gary Chambers visits a drive-through cannabis dispensary in follow-up to his blunt smoking ad, highlighting that cannabis is slowly but surely being normalized day by day, and you gotta love and respect this man's authenticity. As he says, I'm in Illinois, and this is a drive-through dispensary, the Senate candidate says in a video, and I've never even seen what a drive-through dispensary actually looks like, so this is amazing to me. You can pull up and get your grass without even getting out of your car. And look at his eyes, just beautiful. While I play this. These eyes.
I'm in Illinois, and this is a drive-through dispensary. Show them the dispensary.
How cool is that?
So you can pull up and get your grass without ever getting out of your car. It's business, baby.
Times, they certainly are a-changing. And so out of some states, we've got this update out of Indiana as politicians say it's time Indiana legalizes medical cannabis, as Indiana may be getting closer to legalizing cannabis. And another topic on the recent agenda that they've been looking at covering was legalization of medical cannabis. As politicians say that legalizing medical cannabis would mean more jobs for Hoosiers, I don't know how to say that, my apologies. And on the jobs tour, they're discussing why it's important to legalize, as 80% of the state of Hoosiers support medical cannabis or adult use. And so we really aren't representing our districts well when we refuse to hear the 13 bills that were filed this year on the topic, says Maureen Bauer, 6th District State or Indiana State Representative. So thank you, Maureen Bauer, for bringing that to the attention of the people in Indiana, and I hope that you will prove that they are still living in a democracy and work in their favor and help make medical cannabis a reality there. While this update comes out of Kansas, as key GOP Kansas lawmakers file medical cannabis legalization bill in the Senate. So we do like to see this, as medical cannabis legalization is being revived in the Kansas legislature, with a senator introducing a new reform bill on Monday after separate House-passed legislation stalled in the Senate earlier this year. Senator Robert Olson, a Republican, is sponsoring the new Medical Cannabis Regulation Act, which would provide patients diagnosed with a series of medical conditions with access to limited forms of cannabis. And while we do love to see these efforts being revived, unfortunately, it wouldn't be anytime soon, as regulators would have until January 1st, 2024 to promulgate rules for the program, and that wouldn't even be launching. So while this is nice to see, it's a long ways away in Kansas, unfortunately. On to this news from Marijuana Moment, as veteran groups call on Congress to allow medical cannabis access through the VA. And while we've seen this many times, it's just good to see the pressure build, while other pressure in other areas continue to build on Congress and lawmakers to actually do something. As House and Senate committees held joint hearings last week to hear from veteran service organizations about how Congress and the federal government can better serve their constituents, and several of the groups brought up the need to ease restrictions on cannabis. As written testimony submitted ahead of the meetings on Tuesday and Wednesday echoes what VSOs have repeatedly raised with lawmakers. The specifics range in scope between the various groups, but the overall message being made clear, as military veterans uniquely stand to benefit from cannabis treatment, and it's time for Congress to do something about that. Especially since veterans have been asking for this for the last 50 years since they got back from Vietnam, and while they've been asking for 50 years and no one has listened, there's never been a legal market that has now grown to $25 billion in sales. And so while they've been asking for a long time and they haven't been heard, the times are changing, and it is time for Congress to finally listen to them. As among other asks from the organization are for the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs to expand research into the therapeutic potential of cannabis, for Congress to lift study barriers for Schedule I drugs that show medical promise, and to end prohibition outright so that veterans can access medical or cannabis recommendations through their VA doctors, as it should have been done a long time ago. And so again, while this is just a call, it doesn't mean much, much. Hopefully this, with all the other pressure, will lead to some sort of a change. While out of Illinois, as Marijuana Moment reports, Illinois House approves workplace protections for cannabis consumers, as adults in Illinois who use legal cannabis during their free time would be protected from losing their jobs under a bill approved Thursday by the state's House of Representatives, as the measure, which now proceeds to the Senate, would prohibit most employers from firing workers or discriminating against job applicants merely for testing positive for cannabis use, with some exceptions, as Morgan's workplace protection legislation contains exceptions for certain categories of employers. For example, jobs where workers operate heavy machinery or aircraft, carry a weapon, perform emergency services, or perform other safety-sensitive tasks. Well, if these people can still consume alcohol in their off hours, then what's the difference of then consuming cannabis in their off hours? It really wouldn't make a difference, but guess we got to start with some exceptions before we can actually move forward, as companies could also still fire employees for being impaired by cannabis while at work, which is obviously fair enough. But good update out of Illinois to protect workers from ridiculous outdated laws to target cannabis users. While last few ones for Marijuana Moment, as this was reported 2 days ago, more than 50 cannabis and 50 civil rights groups demand Congress lift a ban on DC cannabis sales, and it looked like there might have actually been promising outcome to this. Unfortunately, we just got news this morning that Congress will keep DC cannabis sales ban in place, but continues protections for medical cannabis states in spending legislation. So while this is very annoying, especially to the citizens of DC that voted to legalize adult use sales and launch a program in their city 8 years ago, and they still haven't gotten what they voted for, so still just unfortunate, highlighting that while we're seeing a lot of progress, we are still seeing some stupidity stunt growth. And so lastly, just to round off, from High Times reporting that Morocco moves into medical cannabis cultivation. As I've reported this in the past, good to see progress as they move forward on regulations allowing medical cannabis cultivation in an area of the country similar to the Emerald Triangle. And so in a unique legalization move, Morocco, the North African country, which with Spain flanks the narrow entrance to the Mediterranean from the Atlantic Ocean, has agreed to proceed with medical cannabis cultivation. Such a move is certainly a la mode these days, both in the African, not to mention European continent. And what is unique is that Morocco, like South Africa, appears to want to focus the industry on a specific part of the country and further for strategic, economic, and sustainable development, as well as crime prevention reasons. And so just to highlight the details, the nitty-gritty, Morocco has already established a national agency for the regulation of cannabis-related activities. It is this agency that will buy legal regulated crops and then sell the same to pharmaceutical firms. This agency will act as a focal administrative point as government officials in the interior, agriculture, and health and trade industries decide on the terms of the licenses themselves. While the new law, in an effort to win the hearts and minds of farmers, is also supporting the creation of farmers' cooperatives, which will directly negotiate rates within manufacturers. So it seems like they're getting subsidies from the government to grow, then the government will buy it from them and sell it to the distribution outlets. So not sure that this is the best approach, but it's one approach, and obviously they can make changes over time, but this seems to be what Morocco wants to go with. And the idea is to create a legal industry which brings in much needed foreign investment, tax revenue, and creates jobs while stamping out the illicit market. As license holders would be required to provide the new cannabis agency with both monthly and annual reports on their production. These reports will have to include the overall stocks, seeds, seedlings, and cannabis products, as well as physical inventory of manufacturing facilities, while the percentage of THC in cannabis cultivated here will also be set by government mandate. While Morocco, as a result, may become, along with South Africa, a national experiment in turning a widespread criminal enterprise into a strategic area of the country into a legit revenue-producing one that is also sustainable. Well, the best thing to do that is deschedule that from a silly made-up list of controlled substances, if that's one option, or to just end prohibition in general. That would go a very long way into reducing a lot of the black market problems and creating legal markets with jobs, tax revenue, and other benefits. But that is it for today's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will catch you on Sunday for This Week in Cannabis News. Have a great week, everybody.